Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our thought for the week for another week. There's been some really good sport on television over the past number of weeks. There's been the European Championships postponed from last year and finally happening this year. There's been the joy of Italy and the sadness of England in the final. And of course, the Olympics in Tokyo got underway about 10 days ago, and it's great to see how that unfolds over the next 10 days or so. But in case you haven't picked up by now, that's not been the main focus of my sports watching over the past few weeks. I've been focusing on the British and Irish Lions rugby tour to South Africa. And perhaps you're not familiar with the concept, but what happens is they pick the best 38 players from England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales, throw them together in one squad, take them halfway around the world to the Southern Hemisphere to play either Australia or New Zealand, or in this case, South Africa. And it's not just about the players. They go with a tremendous support squad. There's 5 coaching staff. There's over 18 backroom staff, physios, medics, video analysts. There's an awful lot goes into preparing a match squad of 15 players and 8 substitutes for the match day. And it's all about pulling together. It's all about sacrificing energy and time, sacrificing time from family, and all of this for the goal of becoming a Lions series winner, beating the opponents over a series of 3 matches. And it's been interesting just behind the scenes over this past few weeks to hear how the coaches talk about taking the jersey and investing in it, remembering those who have worn it before you and giving all that you have to take it that little bit further, to give your all in dedication and hard work towards the goal of winning that test series against the opponents. But key in all of this has also been about building relationships. There's been a huge stress on the Ireland players getting to know other players that are outside their nation. The England players doing the same, the Wales players doing the same. So these people who would normally be against each other in their home context within the goal of the Lions series are called to pull together, break down barriers, communicate, get to know each other, and drive and push forward towards that one goal. There's no hidden agendas. It's all about the Lions series win. And it requires a tremendous amount of dedication. But it's been interesting as well to see how people talk about previous tour squads and even 30 years later they meet up and they talk about the bond of relationship that was formed in the crucible of battle as they talk about it. So relationship building is key to the success of a Lions tour overseas. But as I thought about that and about what it takes to get a match squad ready for the game, the intensity of the game, the joy of victory, and the need to have good relationships and all of that, I began to wonder about our church. And whatever size our church may be and wherever that church may be, I began to reflect on this idea of camaraderie and support and pulling together for a common goal that I see so clearly in the Lions Test series at the minute. I thought about mutual cooperation and support. I thought about hidden agendas. I thought that when we see that atmosphere created where people are pulling together sacrificially towards one goal, it's an incredibly attractive thing, and it's something that people want to be part of. The Bible has a lot to say about what it means to be God's church, and the letter to Ephesians talks about God's master plan for his church. And in that letter we see how God calls us as his followers to be built into a spiritual house in which he will dwell by his Spirit. That's an incredible goal, because actually God says that as people look at the church, they are to see the love of Christ in us and they are to see his glory reflected. It's an incredible thing to work towards, an incredible thing to try and achieve. It's quite a goal for us to be working towards being a church that God dwells in by his Spirit. But the letter also talks that God gifts things to his church. He gifts people with talents and abilities and personalities and gifts, all to work towards the same goal of being that spiritual house in which God dwells by his Spirit. And in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15 and 16, we read these words. Speaking the truth in love, we will in all things grow up into him who is the head, that is Christ. From him the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love, as each part does its work. We will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head. Encourages us to strain and work hard to know God more, to deepen our knowledge of Christ, because he is the focus, he is the head, he is the common goal that we're all seeking to serve. He's the common denominator. It is about Christ, it's about being in Christ, it's about making Christ known. That's the only agenda. Everything else needs to fall away. Why? Well, because it tells us here, from him the whole body. So Christ is our source, he's our focus, and it's from him that we grow and build ourselves up in love. He has to be at the center, drawing us ever deeper into his amazing love. And this is the focus, joined and held together by every supporting ligament as each part does its work. Joined together, supporting one another, helping one another, encouraging one another, correcting one another. Each part does its work, each person contributing all they can to this goal of the church growing so that people might know who Christ is. There's times in which that's perhaps more straightforward. There's times in which it's more difficult, and perhaps certainly at this time for the folks in Second Cumber during a time of vacancy, this is a time when it's perhaps a little more difficult. But at this time, the need to grow and pull together, to keep the focus on Christ, to pray and support the leaders, to support the convener as they seek God's will for the future minister, this is a time when every ligament, every part has to play its part. Well, I don't know if you've been following the Lions series, but if you watched on Saturday, you'll know that it wasn't a great match, and it now goes down to the final test match next Saturday, the decider. It's 1-1, and we'll see on Saturday whether the Lions are victorious or whether South Africa win. But there's no doubt about it that whatever lies ahead on Saturday this week for the Lions squad is a time of dedication, a time of work. There's uncertainty, there's anxiety, but there's work to be done. It's time to be dedicated, it's time to encourage one another, it's time to build that camaraderie as they support each other in Cape Town towards a massive game on Saturday. And us as well. Each of us, as we serve the church, wherever God has placed us, there are times of uncertainty and anxiety, times of suspense, but there's always still work to be done, to keep on keeping on. And there's nothing really to compare to making Jesus known and seeing people coming to living faith in Christ. So this week, whatever sport you're watching, whether it's the Olympics or whether it's the rugby, just have a little think about what you can do to contribute to the goal of your local church, making Christ known. Perhaps it's sending an email. Perhaps it's praying a prayer. Perhaps it's lifting up the phone and encouraging someone. Perhaps it's just doing what you do so well, even if nobody's noticing. Because in that way, each of us is contributing, joined together as every ligament, each of us contributing and doing our part so that we are growing into this wonderful expression of love and grace and supporting one another, and in that way making Christ known. So I know where I'm going to be on Saturday evening, going to be watching that test. I trust and hope you have a good and great week together, and God bless.